As season 5 nears, a lot of people who love the show but are more part of the general audience are coming back to the fandom. And some people are lovely. Some people are getting into Byler and getting behind us and joining the community, and it's so nice to see. But some people aren't so nice. Recently, a lot of my comments have been filled, especially my biggest video, queer coding internalized homophobia of Mike Wheeler, has been filled with lots of people saying that Byler won't happen. It's usually these sorts of people that click straight onto the video, don't watch it unless it's one of my trailer analysis, and just straight away comment, it's not happening. Sometimes I'll comment, milevens endgame, Byler's not happening, with no reasoning, which I do wonder because if I've made an hour video on why Byler is happening, I don't really know why they think that's going to convert me. Or sometimes they'll present arguments. And it's fine if they're respectful in this, but more often they're not. And usually these people are milevens. It's definitely not all milevens. Some milevens are lovely. And if you're one of them, I love you. But also, Stranger Things is a fandom that has a lot of homophobia in, surprisingly. For a show that is made for outcasts, it's so homophobic, especially to Will. The vitriol sent to him is just disgusting at some points. So this video I've been wanting to make for a while. I would consider it maybe a spin-off to the queer coding and internalized homophobia of Mike Wheeler. And for this special occasion, I did want to wear a shirt and tie, but I don't possess those things. So instead we're having my Mike Wheeler's Eras Tour t-shirt. And today we're going to go over all the arguments that people present against Byler for why they can't happen and why those arguments don't actually hold up. And then after that, we are going to go through all the reasons why I think these bits of evidence exist only to show that Byler's going to be endgame. There's no other explanation. So go in this, if you're not a Byler, come into this with an open mind. I'd really like to convert some people, but even I'm not expecting you to be a mad Byler like myself and like many viewers of the channel. But even if you change your mind and acknowledge that Byler might be a possibility, that would be a great outcome of this video. So the first argument I would like to address, and maybe the most common one that I've seen around all Stranger Things spaces, is that Byler would be unrealistic. The reasoning behind this is that they would be a gay couple in the 80s. There's obviously a lot more rampant homophobia at that time with the AIDS crisis, the Reagan administration, and general conservative values that happen within American households, within just everywhere. And the argument is that because queer people weren't accepted at that time, they didn't exist. And queer people definitely existed in the 80s. Like, this just seems such an obvious thing to set out. But just because we didn't see them in media, and just because it wasn't accepting and people couldn't be outwardly open queer couples and happy in that, people assume that because we didn't see it happen at that time, that it just didn't happen at that time. But it definitely did happen. And someone like Mike and Will would be extremely realistic because they've both been bullied their entire lives. Will outwardly homophobic bullying, and Mike, he's bullied for more of a nuanced reason. But I would say, from personal experience and from this general internet discourse, is that generally the people that bully you figure out your differences before you do. And I definitely think this could be a case with Mike, especially because he's the one that faces the homophobic bullying in place of Will. And I think there's a reason why it's always directed to him rather than Dustin and Lucas. And I would say that it is incredibly realistic for two friends who have known each other for so long, who have built that care and trust and loyalty to each other, who would do anything for each other. I would say it's really realistic for them to fall in love. They have known each other throughout all their phases. They've accepted each other all the time. I think it would be less realistic if they grew apart and didn't speak to each other anymore. I think it's incredibly realistic for them to be able to fall in love. What is unrealistic is Will being rejected by Mike for a slow burn rejection. If Mike was going to reject Will, he would have done it by now. The gay traumatized character isn't going to be more traumatized by the love of their life rejecting them. That would be bad writing and horrible for Will. And the Duffers love Will. They want him to have a satisfying ending, and in no world is that satisfying. And that's just not a thing writers do. Writers don't write slow burn rejections. They would probably do it in a season. That's just an unrealistic expectation. But let's just say people are right. Byler is unrealistic. There were no queer couples in the 80s. This point is going to go on for a long time, but I'm feeling petty and I'm sick of people relying on only this argument to say why Byler is going to happen. I'll listen to people that give in-depth opinions of why they think that Byler's not going to happen if they have good proof, but this being their only bit of evidence to me is just wrong. So, to illustrate my point, here is my list of absolutely everything in Strange Things which is unrealistic. Starting off strong, a Demogorgon who is a wild beast, taking a child but not killing them. A Demogorgon's existence. Hopper keeping his job as sheriff when he seems terrible at it. Elle's entire existence. Mike being able to hide Elle from his mum for an entire week. Bar being killed by the Demogorgon. Will speaking through the lights. Dustin and Lucas being able to make the dress-up wig look like Elle's real hair. The Upside Down's entire existence. The Demogorgon not killing Dustin, Lucas and Mike immediately at the school. Callie's existence. Dustin randomly finding Dart in a bin in the right side up. Dart and the Demodog's entire existence. Will getting possessed by the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer's entire existence. Joyce and Hopper being able to perfectly line up all of Will's drawings. Hopper getting stuck in the tunnels. The tunnels existing. The lab not looking for Callie like they did for Elle. Will not being in pain when he isn't possessed anymore from the hot poker that Nancy's stuck into his side. Russians building a gate in the Upside Down. Will's connection to the Upside Down through his neck. The rat becoming flayed. Billy becoming flayed. An entire Russian base being built in Hawkins. Anyone being flayed. Teenagers and children being able to figure out a Russian code. A Russian base being that easy to break into. The green toxic substances existing in the Russian base. Dustin knowing how to use the weapon against the guy torturing Robin and Steve. Elle being able to enter Billy's memories. The Fessel Hydra being in the real world. Steve and Robin being absolutely fine after Billy's car goes into them. Vecna existing. Vecna's curse. The Nina project being an entire thing. Them somehow having Elle's memories all on tape. Max being saved by music from Vecna's curse. Hopper not completely breaking his ankle by taking an axe to his ankle cuffs. Hopper breaking out of the Russian prison. Hopper being able to run through all the snow with no shoes on. Mike knowing exactly where Susie lives in Utah. Joyce and Murray being able to break into a Russian prison. Steve not dying from the Demobats. Demobats existing. Joyce, Hopper and Murray being able to break out of said Russian prison. The lab creating a chip to suppress Henry's powers. An 8-year-old beating a fully grown man with her superpowers and banishing him to an entire other dimension. Joyce, Hopper, Murray and Yuri being able to break back into the Russian prison. Elle entering Max's memories, and Elle bringing Max back to life. And that's her entire list. If you're coming to Strange Things for a show about realism, you're in the wrong place. Stranger Things has never been a show about realism. If your only issue with that realism is when it comes to a gay couple being happy together and our main character having his feelings requited, I think that's unreasonable expectations. I think still that Byler is an incredibly realistic portrayal of that time, and even if it wasn't, it doesn't matter. There's so many unrealistic things in this show that to pinpoint this one thing that we want to be realistic is insane to me. And also, there are so many other period shows that have queer couples that reflect our time now instead of having to reflect that time ages ago where being queer wasn't as accepted as it is now. For example, the Buccaneers, Bridgerton, they're coming in with sapphic ships. Obviously, that wasn't accepted at the time, but we're changing it to fit in with our life now, which is how it should be. Part of the reason we love Stranger Things so much is the escapism it gives us. So, again, why are we so fussed about realism? But again, I think that it's incredibly realistic, but even if it isn't. And then the next argument I see a lot is they've been building Maleven up for the past 4 seasons. Why would they break that down now and switch to Byler in the last season out of nowhere? And I would agree with you if they had been building Maleven up for the past 4 seasons, except they haven't. In season one, Mike was only interested in Elle after both Lucas and Nancy put the expectation on him that he should like Elle and this was something he should do in line with society standards because they're just friends of the opposite sex. And if they'd found a boy in the woods, that wouldn't be placed on him. And also, repeatedly in season one, and even up till now, Finn is still saying this. Elle and Mike's relationship in season one is constantly compared to Elliot and ET, which obviously isn't an intended romantic relationship at all. And then we have season two. I'll give you this one because this was building up to Mike and Elle reuniting, and that was a big part of the series. But in the Snowball, Mike and Elle's kiss wasn't written in. That was something that Millie had to request, and the Duffers had to debate about whether they could include it. If this is a couple that's supposed to be endgame and the narrative is supposed to be building up towards them, surely they would be allowed a kiss in season two. That just seems a given to me. And then we have season three. From the very start, they are presented as annoying. Dustin, Lucas, and Will get annoyed at them for being so obsessed with each other and excluding themselves from the group. And then they break up. They are actively torn apart and torn down as a couple. This isn't building them up at all. And that moment is presented as comedic. We're not really supposed to worry about them as a couple at that point. And then Mike can't say I love you to Elle's face. He can only say it in high stakes circumstances where danger is imminently happening, which isn't really a healthy dynamic to say I love you in. And then at the end, obviously, Elle kisses him, and please just watch this scene and look at Mike's face. His eyes are open. He doesn't seem to want to be reciprocating at all. He just looks, his facial expression at the end, it isn't like shock of happiness. It's like oh, I didn't feel how I was supposed to feel in that situation. And then we have season four. From the very start of the season, Mike and Elle are lying to each other. Ella's lying to Mike about her time at school and that she has friends and that she's getting good grades. And Mike is hiding the fact that he can't say I love you and hiding it in bigger gestures like getting her the flowers and constantly writing to her. But he can't face up to the fact that he doesn't love her and Elle wants him to say I love her. And then at Rinkamania, they are objectively not having a good time. We see them having a good time in Will's point of view, but when we switch over to Angela's point of view, they aren't enjoying themselves at all. Mike can't see through Elle's true feelings to her feelings about Angela and seeing her in that sort of situation where she thinks she's in danger. He sort of doesn't see that, even though he would with Will. And then the kicker here is that Mike can't say I love you. Even last season, when he was able to say it in a high stakes situation, he can't even say to Will that he loves her because, well, we're supposed to believe that it's because he thinks that the day that Elle would leave would hurt more. The entire season is spent him feeling insecure about his relationship and how he doesn't feel important in his relationship, all whilst his relationship with Will is being built up and he's feeling empowered by what Will needs from him and what Will is saying to him. And obviously, Will is trying to keep Elle and Mike's relationship together. Because even when Elle is begging Mike to say, I love you, he can't. That's all she wants from him, and he can't do that. And then we get on to the love confession, where Mike is only able to say, I love you after hearing Will's feelings and being encouraged by Will when he was actually saying, I love you, which again isn't a good dynamic for a relationship. It's tearing them down. They're not being able to communicate their emotions truthfully. And then at the end, after all that build up, and you think, if I love you had saved everything, then I might get people's point. But it didn't. It didn't save the world, and it didn't save things between Mike and Elle. Elle isn't speaking to Mike at the end, and their relationship is not in a good place. Saying I love you didn't fix things, so what left is there to fix their relationship? And all of this happens whilst Will and Mike's relationship is being built up, and they're learning to exist with each other when romantic relationships are on their mind, and the change of dynamic between them and the constant intimate moments between them. So why would we have both of these dynamics if the Byler dynamic meant nothing and Malevolent was supposed to be endgame? And then we move on to sort of the counteracting argument that one season isn't enough to build a couple up. To this, I would say look at Lucas and Max. They are evidence in Strange Things that these writers can build up a couple in one season. They meet at the start of season 2 and then they kiss at the end of season 2 as well. And their relationship is beautifully complex, intricate. They have so many of these good moments together, and no one ever complains it is rushed, yet that is only in one season. And Byler's build up is not in one season at all. As I've sort of slightly described in the last answer, they have been building it up since at the very least season 2, or at the very, very least season 4. It would be absolutely impossible for Byler to have a one season build up because we have got explicit confirmation that Will is in love with Mike. So at the very least, it would be 2 season build up. But in season 2, season 3, and season 4, we see all these dynamics between the two and how they love and care for each other and how they make each other feel better in scenarios and just how well they would work as a couple. So their build up wouldn't be in one season at all. Also, I would like to point out if you ship Maleven and you're arguing this, Maleven was also built up in one season. They met at the start of season 1 and they kissed at the end of season 1. So just think about that. And then we have another argument, which is that there are no signs that Mike is gay. And I would argue that you're wrong. Again, I'm biased here. I specifically look for the reasons. But I think that even if you're a general audience viewer, which a lot of general audience viewers have been seeing Byler and have been seeing how it can be canon, especially in the lead up to season 5. But I think that the view of Mike being gay is definitely there. We definitely get the hints and the subtext and all these scenes where we can see that he does reciprocate Will's feelings back. And I can't go into every single reason why I think Mike is gay in this video, but I can point you to my other video, The Queer Coding and Internalized Homophobia of Mike Wheeler, where I practically do go into every reason why I think he's gay. That breaks down all his interactions and all his actions of all the hints that he could be gay and he does reciprocate Will's feelings, because I think it's definitely there. And I think it would be too minimalistic to reject even the view that that's a possibility. And also, I would like to say a sub argument of this argument is that because Mike has been with a girl, he can't be gay. So, I found in Strange Things there's a lot of problem with bi-erasure in this fandom, because him being with Elle isn't a conclusive reason of why he can't be with Will. People can be bisexual. Just because he was with Elle doesn't mean that he can't be with Will. People can like both, and that might be what Mike is. But also, gay people can have dated the opposite sex. They can go through compare, and that can be a real experience, and it would be great to see that shown in Stranger Things. And also, we're shown Vicky in last season, where she had a boyfriend and was also interested in Robin, showing that bisexuality does exist in the world of Strange Things, and showing it to the general audience to maybe even prepare them for what's to come in season 5, maybe. And the last, and maybe the most stupid argument against Byler, is that Byler is a crack ship. A crack ship is a ship that is canonically implausible, bizarre, or humorous. It is literally impossible for Byler to be a crack ship because Will's feelings are explicit and confirmed. It's not a bizarre, humorous, implausible relationship if one side of the ship has feelings that are confirmed. That's something that can't be true. And also, why would people be so violently against the possibility of Byler if there was no way at all it was going to happen? You see, with L-Max versus Lumax shippers, there's no animosity between those two because everyone knows that Lumax is going to be endgame and L-Max probably won't be. Same with Rocky, Robin and Vicky, and Romance, Robin and Nancy. people know that Robin and Vicky are going to be endgame, so there's no arguments between there. If there was no way that Byler was going to be a canon ship, why would there be so many arguments over it? Now that we have those things cleared up, let's move on to reasons why I think Byler has to be canon in season 5. About 2 years ago, I started a notes in my notes app on my phone of things that would cure Byler doubt just for the fun of it. And these are basically all the reasons. All of these bits of evidence, I think you can't explain without Byler being endgame. There's just no other plausible reason why these bits of evidence would exist. And I've put them into categories. We have in show evidence, writing choices, season 5 news, social media, interviews, and promo. So, first we have in show evidence. So, Mike shows way too many signs of reciprocating Will's feelings to the point where in season 1 and 2, people thought that Mike had the crush on Will and that Will didn't reciprocate. There's just so many instances of him outwardly showing his love and care and trust towards Will in a way that is completely romantic, and some of his looks you can't explain platonically. And again, if you want more in depth about this, go to my queer coding and internalized homophobia video about Mike Wheeler, and that should hopefully explain a few more things. Second reason is that both Mike and Will's fights have exactly the same setup. I think if they were just friends, then both their arguments might have different setups, but they go out exactly the same way. So Mike is spending too much time with Elle, he's ignoring the rest of the party, throwing himself into a relationship to try and drown out all the thoughts, in my opinion, of his sexuality and everything like that. So then Will points out and says that he's not being a very good friend and looks at him completely platonically in this sense, wants him to just start being a better friend, start joining the party and reuniting the party again. But then Mike makes it about the nature of their relationship and starts questioning that and makes it about Will being gay, when Will was never trying to make it about his feelings for Mike. It was just about the party and platonic feelings. Mike is insecure about the nature of their relationship. That is why he is questioning it and bringing them up and projecting on Will that it's not my fault you don't like girls and we're friends, because he himself is doubting those things about himself. And if he moves it on to Will, then that's a lot easier than facing it himself. And then we also have the in-show hate from Eleven. So obviously Hopper hates him in season 3. That can be played off as comedic. That isn't too much something to rely on. But Dustin, Lucas, and Will don't like them. If only Will didn't like them, then you'd understand, because obviously Will has feelings for Mike. But Lucas makes fun of them when they meet up at the mall at the start of season 3 to watch the movie, and Will laughs because he agrees. And then Dustin is just really annoyed at Mike for leaving the party early and not seeing him call Susie because he's too obsessed with Elle and sort of wants to prioritize his relationship. Not to mention, Mike is significantly less likable when he's with Elle, and why would you make that happen with a couple that's supposed to be endgame? And then we have milevens breakup being solely comedic. Again, compared to Will and Mike's devastating fight in season 3 about their friendship breaking up and Mike running after him, even though that's exactly what Max said that he would do for Elle, why would we be presented the endgame couple breaking up as something comedic? And then we also have Mike's jacket in season 4 with a pocket. Most people probably know what I'm on about here, but basically, Mike's blue jacket or shirt or whatever you call it in season 4 has a pocket which looks like an envelope relating to all the letters that are brought up, pointing in a specific direction. And often, with the framing of scenes and where Elle, Mike, and Will pose with each other, Mike's pocket is often pointing towards Will. And during very vital Malevolent scenes as well, during the love confession, the pocket is pointing towards Will. When he's supposed to be pouring his heart out to Elle, it's pointing to Will. If they didn't want that, they could have either had Will on the other side of the bathtub, or they could have just had Mike take the jacket off, because that's what they do when they're talking on top of the car. And then also, when they visit Max at hospital, they shift round so they're in this very specific order. It goes L, Mike, Will, and Mike's pocket is pointed towards Will, even when he has his arm around L. And that's incredibly obvious that they're pointing towards Mike's feelings being towards Will there. And Mike outright lied in his love confession. There's lots of bits in the confession that we can talk about. Maybe he meant towards Will, maybe he wasn't being entirely truthful. But the one thing that we can confirm he lied about was that he had loved Elle from the second he saw her, because he just didn't. We have proof from season one that when they first met, Mike wanted to send her back to Penthurst, where she came from, well, where he thought she came from, so he could continue looking for Will. And this is not love at first sight at all. And he only warmed up to her when it proved that she could help them find Will. And why would you include this in the love confession when we can explicitly prove it's wrong if the love confession was supposed to be genuine and supposed to really come from Mike's heart? And if this was a line that Finn improvised, because we know that he improvised some of the love confession, like, they could have just got him to refilm it. If this was something that they didn't want to be proved wrong, they could have made him redo it. Like, they're the directors, but they made that line stay, and for a reason. And then Mike and Elle didn't have to have conflict in season four. It would have been enough in the season for Mike and Will to have conflict and struggle about where their friendship is, and even with Will having feelings for Mike in that season, and Mike could have lent on Elle trying to fix that friendship and go through all the traumas that they've been, and puberty and becoming teenagers, and trying to fix his friendship with Will. But no, they gave Mike and Elle conflict as well. They put those two plots alongside each other purposefully. They brought Maleven down and they built Byler up. And that's very purposeful for how we need to be viewing each of those relationships for the next season. And then the end shot with Mike and Will as well, where they're both together and Elle is on her own. Mike and Will are together, and the only two other pairs that are together are canon couples. We have Jonathan and Nancy and Joyce and Hopper. Why would they frame it that specific way if Mike and Will weren't supposed to be together? They could have had Will walk out into the apocalyptic section of Hawkins. They didn't have to have Elle having that role, because Will's going to be the main character in season 5. And you could have had Mike and Elle together, so you have all the endgame couples there, and Will reaching out to the flower, because that would have done symbolism for season 5 as well. But no, they had Elle going on her own and Mike and Will staying together, aka what they're going to do in season 5. And Noah also brought up the duos in the season 4 promo, so they obviously mean something. And then we've only got Will's point of view of Byler in the recent seasons. If Mike's point of view was that he didn't like Will back at all and was sort of a bit oblivious to his feelings, why wouldn't we be getting his perspective? Like, just explain that. And then we see Will's perspective of Maleven, which is them being happy, and then the real objective perspective of them from Angela is that they're not happy in Rinkomania. So I think this very biased view from Will is affecting maybe how we see everything. And if this is how gay and in love Mike is acting through Will's point of view, just imagine what it's like for everyone else. And lastly, they have so many parallels to canon couples. I can't go through them all because that would take up so much of this video, and I already reckon this video is going to be long enough. But one of the notable ones I think of is Mike and Will on top of the car versus Jonathan and Nancy on top of the car, where both the Byers are comforting the Wheelers about the insecurity based on their current relationship. And then we move on to writing choices. So the first point in this is, how else can we explain Mike's character change in season 3 and 4? If it was purely from trauma, he would have started acting like this in season 2. But no, he only starts acting like this in season 3 and 4 when relationships are brought up, and that's becoming a really important part of the kids' lives. He is acting like this in response to changing relationships and having to deal with what his and Will's relationship is actually like, and how he's having to deal with Elle in a world where he doesn't feel how he should. And also, why introduce a love triangle if it's going to end how it started? It would maybe make sense if you introduced it earlier on in the season, but it's been explicitly introduced in season 4. There would be absolutely no point bringing in this love triangle for it to end how it started within 2 seasons. Just no one does that. It's lazy writing, and the Duffers seem to care more about Will to not do that. And the last point in this section is that everything is centered around Will in this show. And they're not just going to give the gay, traumatized main character a even worse ending. They're not going to set up his feelings for Mike just to be rejected. This season, Vecna is going to be taunting Will about his feelings for Mike. And he's probably going to say, oh, he can never like you back, all that stuff. And why would Vecna be proved right? That would be like Lucas actually telling Max that she's wrong for thinking everything she does about Billy and that it's better her not being here. Like that just it wouldn't make sense at all. And the show isn't going to end, or at least it very much shouldn't end, with Will being told that the love of his life doesn't love her back and that it's fine them just being friends. Then we move on to season 5 news. So Mike and Will are always together. Both Finn and Noah have said in interviews that most of their scenes are with each other. You don't put Will with his love of his life all throughout that season just for him to get rejected. That would be absolutely pointless and stupid and a bad writing choice because you don't put them together and develop their relationship just to make it all fall down at the end. Equally, Mike and Eleven aren't together enough in the season to sort out their problems. They aren't going to be together much at all because we know that Elle's storyline is mainly going to be with Hopper. So, in order for them to be able to sort out their problems, they need to be together. When they're split up, when Mike is with Will, who is his other love interest, their relationship isn't going to get fixed. And lastly, the painting plot needs to be resolved. They could have easily left that back in season 4, but season 5, it is going to be a really important part of the plot. And they're not going to drag that out just for Mike to find out the truth and then still say to Will that they're just friends and that he supports him, but he doesn't love him back. And then we move on to interviews. So this is things that a lot of the cast have said at cons or magazine interviews that I think completely point towards Byler becoming canon. And I'll be flicking my eyes down here because my notes are here. So first we have Noah saying at a con last year, you never knew if it was a romantic or just a really special friendship about Mike and Will's friendship. Showing it was always intended to be ambiguous. We weren't supposed to just think, oh, Mike and Will are just friends. We were always supposed to question it. And they included scenes like that to make us question it. And why would they do that if nothing was going to come out of it at all? Then we have Noah saying in a recent interview that Will's sexuality is going to be a major plot point in season 5. And it can't be a major plot point without bringing up Mike and having some sort of confrontation between them about things. And again, as I've said so many times, I don't think that confrontation is going to end in rejection because it'd just be pointless. And Noah also said in the SFX magazine that the ending will leave people empowered to be themselves. And no one is empowered by the gay main character being rejected. That doesn't power people up to be their queer, authentic selves. It just doesn't. And we have got so many times Finn saying in season 4 promo, I think, and I think season 5, that Mike goes on a journey. But how would he be going on a journey if he ended the season exactly the same place that he started the season? That just doesn't make sense. And then we have Finn saying Mike not reacting to Will getting upset in the van will pay off. It's not going to pay off by him rejecting him. And Finn saying that just because he doesn't give much away. Noah's probably the one that gives us more clues, but him saying that that's like a real giveaway to me. Like, why will it pay off? Like, Byler game. And then Matthew Modine said Elle has only used anger to fuel her powers, and Millie dodged a question of talking about how Mike's love motivated her to save Max out, and these were both at a con. And this shows Mike's love confession didn't motivate her to save Max. It was her love for Max that saved her. Mike and Eleven's love for each other had nothing to do with the successes of the end of the season. And it actively made everything worse in the end. And Sean Levy at the recent premiere for the first, well, what we saw the first 5 minutes of episode 1, said that Finn and Noah are carrying a lot of emotional weight for this season, and he picked those two out specifically. Why would he pick those two out specifically if it didn't mean anything, if it wasn't towards Byler? And we know that he has directed a lot of really important Byler scenes. And then we have evidence in Strange Things books. So, first is that Mike doesn't have a book. So many characters have books now, apart from, I think, Will and Steve. I think Mike as well, they're the only three that main characters that don't have books, and Jonathan. But why Mike's book would inevitably sell well. He's a popular character, he's one of the core four, yet we don't have a book for him. We know that we don't have a book for Will because there's stuff in his past that is going to be revealed in season 5, and that would be a spoiler. But what do we not know about Mike yet that we can't know? In my opinion, it's obviously his internal monologue and thoughts towards Will that still needs to be hidden. And then in the Dustin experiment, Dustin's book, there are so many lines about Mike clinging onto the phone when Will calls, and him struggling between dealing with both Elle and Will. And this book is essentially canon, so I think this really works towards all of our building up all of our evidence. And then in the new 2026 annual, Mike's likes, because they all have character profiles saying their likes, and Mike's likes are Will's paintings and picking flowers for Elle. First of all, Lucas only has in his likes about Max, so obviously this is set up as love interests. Yeah, Mike has both Elle and Will, so we don't know who he's going to end up with. And for Elle, he has an action for Elle in his likes picking flowers. But for Will, he just has part of Will's personality and what Will does, Will's paintings, which I think is very, very telling. And also in the new annual, we had a bit of text saying that Will was upset that Mike was replacing him with Elle, showing that they occupy the same place in Mike's life. And obviously, Mike and Eleven is explicitly romantic. If he's just replacing her with Will, like that shows that that relationship was supposed to be implied as maybe romantic from the start. And then we have things that happen on social media. So for this, I'm going to count Spotify as social media because it didn't fit in any other category. So first we have for Mike's season 2 playlist, he had Small Town Boy as his first song, which is the internalized homophobia song, and Our Friends Electric, which Dustin makes a reference in the show to Max and Lucas being electric. Obviously, they're a couple, and that couple tension comes with electricity. So these two songs being on his playlist, why else would they be? It's about questioning a friendship relationship and whether that could be something more, something which he didn't do with 11, but he can do with Will. And speaking of playlists, we also have the ST Turn playlist, or however you say it, that Finn Wolfhard made during the season 5 filming, and all of the songs have very queer subtext or overtones. For example, like Angst in My Pants, that is a very explicitly queer song, and all of them added up to a storyline that makes sense for Byler. If you want a rundown of this playlist, look on Tumblr. There's so many good ones. I don't feel like I can do it justice, but it's definitely a good piece of evidence for us. And then a leak said that, well, someone asked a leak about wanting Maleven info, and they said would need a shovel, aka Maleven bones, which makes me have. Obviously, you can never fully trust anything a leaker says, but I do find it very interesting. And also, when a Maleven posted about Mike and Elle in the new trailer, the Strange Things account just said that sunset sky, didn't say anything about Maleven. They aren't promoting Maleven at all. And then in Finn's rap post, Noah commented that he was so proud of him for everything he's done that season. Obviously, they're friends, but why would he be so proud of him for just continuing to act in exactly the same way as he did the past 4 seasons? I think it's more likely that he'd be so proud of him for joining him in being part of a groundbreaking queer narrative in a mainstream show. And then we have the promo for season 5. I'll go through this quickly enough because if you want to see my in depth takes on this, I've got 4 videos on each week of promo that they did in October about each season. So, first is that we don't really have any clips of, well, we have 2 clips of Maleven in the trailers, and they can be shown to be platonic. And then we don't have any clips of just Mike and Will together, even though we know that they're together most of the season and they're living together. So this shows that these scenes are going to be romantic and there are going to be at least overtones that we can't see yet and are going to be suggestive of Mike maybe liking Will back. That's very intentional. And they're pushing Lumax as the main couple. In all the promo, Maleven, the main bit of promo we got for them was their breakup in season 3. Whereas Lucas and Max, their scenes were always pushed and always sort of put on the main Instagram feeds to really push them as our main couple in the show instead of Mike and Eleven, who used to take that top spot. And Finn was just generally clocked out for all the Maleven reaction scenes, and Finn was also given the painting to react to, not Noah, showing how it's going to be crucial to Mike's character and how he feels in the entire show. So that was all my reasons of why all the arguments against Byler, all the sort of common ones, can be disproved, and all the bits of evidence that Byler will be going canon. I love being part of the Byler community. Everyone's so lovely and welcoming, and I haven't had Byler out in a while. But even if we do get unlucky, and somehow this is literally the worst queer bait ever, really, this wasn't our fault. There's been evidence all along pointing towards it. To me, it's been so clear, and really, I think we can be hopeful, and I think it will happen. And I just want to leave on a parting note. Maya Hawke did an interview on the red carpet of the premiere, and I think this really speaks for everything the Byler community want through Byler Endgame and the ending of Strange Things and how groundbreaking it would be. So I'll just read what she said out, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. I This is one of my favourite videos to work on. It was really fun, and I hope you come back for the next video. And I hope if you weren't sure about Violet at the start of this video, I hope you've at least changed your mind a little bit. So this is what she said. So often, it feels like gay characters are only allowed to exist on shows that are about being gay. And this show's about so many things. And to have a leading role in a mainstream show that just everybody goes to watch, like your homophobic Uncle Rick can't avoid Stranger Things, maybe the way he could avoid something else. This would just be massive for Strange Things to end with a main queer couple and would really help in the world that we're living in now, I think. So just let that sit with you, and I will see you in the next video.